I'm going to share an experience with the campesino movement, with whom I worked for several decades. And the campesino movement started in the highlands of Guatemala with farmers who had been run over by the Green Revolution and who had adopted the technological package of fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and hybrid seed and whatnot. Peasant farmers who initially saw increases in productivity and then very quickly saw their soils destroyed and were deeply in debt. And what they did was they began to recover some of their traditional forms of agriculture and then improve upon those through a system of small-scale experimentation in which they would experiment on maybe a 10 by 10 plot within their field, something new that they thought might help solve a problem. And they did this in groups, so that in any given group you might find 10 farmers experimenting together on the same problem using 5 or 6 different approaches. And so they very quickly got their agriculture moving again, introducing these very agroecological techniques by means of small-scale experimentation and then sharing farmer to farmer. This method spread throughout Central America and Mexico with the help of a lot of NGOs and with absolutely no help from scientists, technicians, extensionists, ministries of agriculture, the Center for International Agricultural Research, in other words, the Green Revolution. On the contrary, they were ridiculed. Even though they ended up doubling, tripling, quadrupling their yields under rain-fed conditions, because they were able to identify what the limiting factors to productivity were. And then they experimented to figure out, well, how can we overcome these limiting factors, and why are they limiting in the first place? They ended up conserving soil, conserving water, diversifying their crops, improving on their seed selections, establishing seed banks, and they had these farmer-to-farmer workshops in which they would teach each other. And then they began to have gatherings, huge gatherings. 100, 200 farmers would come together, share seeds, share knowledge, and it was sort of our job to document this. Right? And then we kept taking this documentation, to the authorities and to the ministries, and look, look what's happening here. And we were summarily ignored until 1998, when Hurricane Mitch hit the region. And I was actually back in the United States doing a PhD in agroecology at that time. And Mitch destroyed Central America and destroyed farming in Central America. It killed 10,000 people, destroyed 13% of the gross national product of Central America. It's called the Hurricane of the Poor because most of those 10,000 people were poor farmers who died. I was emotionally destroyed by this and was ready to walk out of my PhD program, go back and see what I could do. Cooler heads prevailed. They said, wait, find out what's happened first. And what had happened was that the farmers in this movement their farms had withstood the impact of the hurricane. In other words, their agroecological practices had given them the agroecological resilience to be able to resist the impact of the hurricane. So we went down and said, isn't this interesting? There's some money out there to reconstruct Central America. What if we were to do a study which showed what we can see? That in fact, the campesino resisted the hurricane better using agroecological practices. So we did. With the farmers from the movement who are already very good at experimentation. They've been carrying out small-scale experimentation for over 30 years. We had controlled experiments, not that farmers don't experiment anyway. So we designed the study together. And we designed the indicators together. And the methods and the protocol was all designed together with the farmers themselves. I have to say that most of these farmers were neoliterate. They really didn't read or write as a way of sharing information or knowledge. Some of them couldn't read or write at all. But even if they could, that wasn't how they did things. So we formed about 100 teams in Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, worked with about 40 NGOs, and 2,000 farmers. And we compared the agroecological farmer to their neighbor, the conventional farmer. And we could find those pairs. They call them las gemelas, the twins. So we compared basically 1,000 twins, right? So 2,000 farmers. And these were village events when we went out and did the study. And we had to actually hold everybody else out at bay. You don't want to influence the researchers. And the researchers were farmers and technicians from the movement, right? Anyway, it was our job then to process all this information, which we did, and we were astounded by what we saw, because hands down, no question, p-values of 0.001 or 0.0001, depending on the indicator, we were sure that, in fact, these practices had allowed farmers to resist the impact of the hurricane. We looked at the indicators, they lost less soil, they had less landslides, they had profits instead of losses, actually, in many cases. And it was really quite a sophisticated study, which I can't go into now, but the fact is that the results were just overwhelming. So we organized presentations in the capital cities of the 3 countries. We invited all of the international agricultural agencies to come, and the ministries to come. The Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, everybody come and watch these farmers as they present their data to you. And, we had to buy farmers, like, jackets and nice, clothing to be able to go to an international conference and present their results, which they did beautifully because it was their data. They knew exactly what they were talking about. No one was going to fool them or intimidate them, and they had a mission. They wanted to rebuild Central American agriculture in a way which was resilient rather than vulnerable. And, finally, they got the recognition. The CGIAR, the ministries, the scientists, the extensionists, the ingenieros agrícolas all came up and said, you guys were right. All this time we've been making fun of you. And in fact, you're right. You won. You're more sustainable. You got it. Congratulations. And we turned in the study. We published the study, of course, in peer-reviewed journals. And then we turned in the study also to what they call la cooperación externa, foreign cooperation, because they were going to Spain and they were going to negotiate the terms of reconstruction for Central America. And they were gone for about 3 or 4 months. And we finally got the study back, about how Central America was going to be reconstructed. We were so excited because we told them, we can do it, it'll be resilient, it'll be cheap, because it'll be farmer to farmer, looking through. Okay, look for farmer to farmer. No, I couldn't find campesino. Okay, look for agroecology. No, I couldn't. Look for sustainable agriculture. No, we couldn't find it. It's a huge report. Joder. Look for agriculture. We couldn't find agriculture. So, in the infinite wisdom of the development banks and the ministries of agriculture and the Europeans, Central America's countryside was to be rebuilt by not rebuilding it. In fact, what they were proposing was the precursor to the Plan por la Panamá, which was the precursor to the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was get all these peasants out of the countryside and into the sweatshops. So they should come out of the country, they should move into the sweatshops, and then through these sweatshops and linking to the global market, we will rebuild Central America. Well, we know what happened after that. That's when the waves of migration started. And not just because of NAFTA, it was because of the abandonment of the peasantry as a class. And we learned a terrible, terrible lesson. It's not enough to be right. We were right. We did everything right for a long time. And we proved it. It's not enough. You need to have the power of a social movement behind you, organized as a social movement. We were organized as a broad-based network for knowledge sharing. Very good. Not enough. Absolutely not enough. And, it just hit us like a ton of bricks. We can't believe this. And, in fact, had Via Campesina been active at that time, we might have had a chance. Via Campesina could have lobbied in Spain. They could have occupied the offices in Spain and demanded the sustainable reconstruction, agroecological reconstruction of Central America. Politically, but we weren't there yet. We're there now, and that's the good news. And I hope we don't need another hurricane in order to prove ourselves. Thank you.